Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Expats Portugal Euro 2021 preview program. Unfortunately, we don't have the wonderful Mr. Carl Munson to host this evening, as he was unavailable and we were unavailable this Friday at our usual slot of 9 o'clock because it clashes with England versus Scotland, Rich. So there was no way we were going to miss that. So we're actually recording this on Wednesday, the 16th of June. Our next show will be on Friday, the 25th, as usual. But today we're going to be reviewing the England-Croatia match that took place a couple of days ago, last Sunday, as well as Portugal-Hungary yesterday, and then looking ahead excitedly to England-Scotland this Friday. So, Rich, England-Croatia, I was surprised by some of Gareth Southgate's choices with the starting 11 and more surprised by the performance. But what did you think? What were your thoughts?
Well, I mean, we recorded some preview segments, and I don't know if now would probably be the time to roll the tape on those. I don't know if you have the technical wizardry to put them in.
We'll ask Carl to snip it in if he can.
Yeah, where I did actually predict the correct score.
You did
on the basis that England would have the superior attacking options, but that it would be a tight and quite defensive game. I mean, I think the tournament so far, the majority of the games have gone pretty much the way you'd expect them. I think that, you know, to say Italy look awesome or and such, I know they're winning again at the moment. These games have pretty much gone the way we might have thought they would have gone. The Netherlands Ukraine game being this sort of volatile exception, and the Poland Slovakia game, which really I know our Canadian friend is trying to dial in as we speak, but his dark horses Poland appear to be Poland appeared to be a bit dead in the ditch at the moment with 2 defeats, and my dark horses also took a beating in that game. What did I think? There were some strange things in that team selection. I would have preferred Sterling to have been omitted, and
that was the one thing we all thought was strange. Yeah, he ended up being the goal.
I mean, I think given the form that Sancho's been in, I think I was absolutely shocked to see that he wasn't even in the matchday squad. Quite remarkable. That said, I mean, Sterling really, the thing that he does give you, and I did mention this in my preview, was that perhaps he Gareth wanted him to play himself into form, and he certainly had a very, very influential game. He buzzed around. He does what Sterling does. He initiates attacks. He may not always be the man who gets on the end of it. He's not the greatest finisher in the world, but he's very creative. He's a very intelligent player. He moves. He makes lots of space for people, and he gets himself in great positions. So Sterling, I was a bit surprised by that. Trippier, I was extremely surprised to see Trippier lining up on the left side of defence. I mean, a lot of people have said that might be to do with his set pieces, but I think he is a good defender. He's experienced. There's talk today in the papers of Manchester United haggling over his potential transfer fee with Atleti, which is quite surprising. But he is a very good player. But then you left Chilwell. Again, another sort of surprise admission, Champions League winning Chilwell, who's had a superb season out in the cold, and Luke Shaw again finding himself on the bench. That was quite surprising. Trippier, I thought, performed fine, but he wasn't even charged with taking the free kicks. I think Mason Mount was who played well.
Does that send a message to Shaw and Chilwell that they're not going to play, or do you think he's going to rotate a little bit the formation depending on the position?
Well, come on. When we preview Scotland, I think we can delve into that a little bit.
But were you happy with the back four choice in the end? Because that was a bit.
also he put Mings in, who I thought had played pretty poorly in the friendlies, and I thought White might have got in ahead of him. But I thought he would probably opt for the super defensive approach and go for 3 at the back with 2 wing backs. Instead, he went for 4 at the back and the double pivot, meaning 2 holding midfielders. Yeah. And we didn't really talk about Phillips in our preview show. I thought Phillips was, I thought if Henderson was fit, he probably would have played. But he's clearly not. And Phillips, absolutely excelled himself. He's man of the match in I think most people's books. He did a great deal. He did a great deal right, both attacking and defensively. I suppose the other pick, alongside Sterling up front, obviously he went for Phil Foden as well, sporting his blonde locks, and I thought he had a very good game.
Unlucky not to score, right? Unlucky not to score.
Wow, I mean, so for Croatia just lined up as one might expect. As I said, I don't think they haven't got a huge depth, although they have shuffled things in midfield, and they have got another young striker who they brought on late on, but they don't really have the options that England have. So they came pretty much as expected. So I think first thing to say about the game is, the England players at Wembley took the knee, and that was met with virtual universal cheering. A few boo boys were drowned out by all accounts, which I think is a very positive thing. The game kicks off. First 20 minutes, England were. We were in almost total control for the first 20 minutes and playing at quite a lot of tempo. Foden hit the post with that lovely little jinking run, having been set. Phillips having unleashed him. Phillips had that shot from the edge of the box. We were all over them with it, and Croatia were kind of struggling to get out. As the game went on, you sort of, the old England cliches. They start. Are they wilting in the summer heat? They certainly looked in the second part of the first half to, Croatia got back into it a little bit, but all the same, Phillips had such a good game. He really did. Wouldn't say he had Modric in his pocket, but he, often Modric has a way of imposing himself on game, and he wasn't able to do that. And when in possession and in transition, Phillips and Rice were excellent, really good. Second half, England came out of the blocks pretty quickly again. Sterling took the chance when it was presented to him, having fluffed his lines a few. At the end of the second half with that sort of shot he kind of flashed at. Really lovely goal. It's everything that you want to see with Raheem Sterling. He sensed the space. He's not like a massive physical presence, but he's clever. He moved into smart positions, and that was it. He spotted the gap, and Phillips had the presence of mind to find him. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what the Croatian left back was doing, but probably a little bit tighter on Phillips. But there you go. But great goal, tremendously composed finish, which is what you'll get from him. And then from then on, England weren't really that troubled by
that was maybe what might concern me a little bit, Rich, is that I didn't see England tested defensively that much, and you could argue that was because we played very well, we pressed very well. But that would be my only concern. I didn't see the defence tested, and we'll have to wait and see, maybe later in the tournament.
Yeah, but I think that potentially is a testament to the defence and the level of control they offered. I think let's not get ahead. It was a good performance, and Croatia really were stifled. They had Perisic had a couple of chances, which he completely messed up. But they really had. Jordan Pickford didn't really have anything to do. So I think overall a very, very composed performance. It feels like Southgate got the big calls right. I think the selection which I might have the main things I would have quibbled at would be Sterling's inclusion over Sancho, which shows what I know. And Mings, I might have thought about playing White or playing Cody and White in a back three. That went very well. Now the sort of negative things. Kane looked out of sorts. He had a great chance in the second half to wrap up the points, which he put wide, and he had an unfortunate collision with the post at that point. Harry Kane, you would expect to be getting those sorts of chances, and he was neither. In the Premiership this year, he's been, the number 9 and number 10 for Spurs. He's been absolutely exceptional. But really, he was neither. He had quite poor games, one of the poorer performers in the England side. I think also, Modric was whinging about it before the game, but it's not to be understated how much of an advantage it is playing at home in these sorts of games.
Well, this was the other thing, wasn't it? And I think this is what's been really interesting about this tournament is obviously the teams that have the home advantage and finally having crowds. And even though we didn't see the same crowds at Wembley that we saw in Hungary yesterday,
well, we'll come on to that. I mean,
there was still a lot of people, and you could tell, couldn't you, that there were. I didn't see any children or women. It was all young men. So maybe that's because of COVID. There's concerns from families. They're thinking, well, we're not going to risk taking the wife and kids, just the men going. But I think that added to the atmosphere because it was quite an aggressive sort of sound that I could hear coming from the crowd.
Possibly selfishness of white middle-aged men. I think which they're notorious for. I suspect that might have had more to do with it. If I had 2 tickets for the England game, would I take one of my kids or would I ask you if you want to come? I don't know. I mean, I think we can probably draw our own conclusions there. So yeah, really, really good performance. It's a good start. But as I say, I mean, I think of all the opening fixtures, apart from France, Germany, they were all a bit tilted and have gone mostly the way we would have expected. France, Germany, tougher. France, obviously the favourites, and they came out on top. But and here, this was one of the tighter games, and England did narrowly come out on top. And I think Southgate deserves some credit for that. But
I think he does. I didn't expect us to win. I thought we would get a draw, and I would have been very happy with a draw. I thought Mings with Stones would have been my preferred choice if he was going to go with a back four, which he did, because I think they're probably our best 2 centre backs in a back 4. I know that Mings is susceptible to making errors, as is Stones, but I think they were both on form, and I think they did really well, even though they weren't tested that much. But to me, what really impressed me was the way he utilised the substitutes. He brought Calvert-Lewin on, even though he only brought him on for a few minutes at the end. He brought Rashford on, and he brought Bellingham on for like 15, 20 minutes. And I think, for these guys, it's a big deal, right? To get on and say they've played minutes in a European Championship, it's important. I think if we're going to go deep into this tournament, and like I said on the last program, to me, that means, we should try and get to the final. I know we probably won't. That's my overly optimistic view. He's going to have to utilise the squad to keep them happy so that they're a cohesive unit, which it looks like. And I don't know about you, mate, but looking at what I've seen so far, and we'll talk about Portugal now, maybe, because they probably look like the other team that look the strongest. And I know, after the first game, it's dangerous to judge it, as we've seen over the years with how many tournaments we've watched together. How
Oleg Solenko factor.
Yeah, exactly.
We're blinded by the group stages, and but it's the sort of performance that teams who are going to progress far will put in. There's no doubt about that. So, but also, I mean, Croatia did not have a good day at the office. They were out-muscled, and I think a little bit out-thought and out-fought by England. They didn't really, they didn't feel like the canny operators that we saw in 2018, and they're missing, Mandzukic to the pitch.
Yeah, but is that the experience of this group, do you think, though? Is that the fact that this group, has come from getting to the semi-finals of a tournament, that we've had players that have had good seasons domestically and that have won things, and they're playing well. And we've got a very fit squad. I mean, we haven't had any big injuries like we've had in the past, right? I know Kane, there's question marks about
the goalkeepers keep, dropping their cologne on their feet, as it were. There's a bit of a. I'm a bit nervous if Pickford gets injured now. That could be problematic.
Yeah, it's true.
No, I think it's part. Let's see what happens in the next game. But Croatia are at the end of a cycle, really, and it felt quite tired. That their performance, but maybe it was because England were good. maybe it's because Croatia are bad. I think by the end of the group stage, we'll have a bit more context and see. Anyway.
I mean, Modric obviously had an amazing season the year that they got to the semis. And, that was just good timing for them. But all right. Well, let's talk about Portugal then.
So you're the you're our man in Portugal. So poor old Portugal had to go to the cauldron of the fully sick. I mean, they're in the group of death, but and no one's really given Hungary much of a prayer. But when I saw that the stadium at the start, I thought, well, I don't know. Well, how do you think they did, Michael?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was obviously until the last sort of 10 minutes, it was a very tight match. And Hungary were looking very good. They had a goal that was ruled out that was slightly offside, but they were looking very dangerous. But Ronaldo was looking really, really good even at that point. And just the squad is just so strong. I mean, I was pleasantly surprised to see William Carvalho in there as one of the defensive midfielders, the Betis player.
Did he start?
He started, he started.
Okay.
And obviously with Jota in there and Bruno Fernandes and Ronaldo. I mean, it's a quality team. And then you had Rafael Guerreiro, who, not many people will know him, but Borussia Dortmund. He had a good season at Borussia Dortmund. He got the first goal.
Yeah.
And then Ronaldo stepped up, as he invariably does, and polished the game off in the last few minutes.
Was Fernandes playing? I mean, from Man U, he plays in a very advanced role. Yeah. But, I mean, I noticed for the Guerreiro goal. Sorry, have I said that correctly?
Yeah, you have. Guerreiro, yeah.
Guerreiro goal.
Guerreiro, the Portuguese would say, but we can do it more.
Suits your Argentine Spanish accent. He seemed to be quite deep position, but was he playing a bit as playing Ronaldo and the other forwards? Is that pushed back a bit, or how they working?
Yeah, I think Ronaldo now, as he's been playing for Juventus and his last couple of seasons at Real Madrid as sort of an out-and-out number 9, he does have a lot more license to sort of roam forward and not have to backtrack as much. So I think the defensive responsibility would fall more on a Fernandes because he's better at it. So to give the likes of Bernardo Silva and Jota the chance to go forward. I'll tell you one thing, I was surprised to see Joao Felix not even in the squad.
Yeah.
That was a very big surprise.
Yeah.
But I mean, they just look very good and not intimidated by that, as you said, that cauldron. I mean, it was the first time that we'd seen a stadium that full. I mean, I don't know what it was like for you listening to it on TV where you were, but what I was, it sounded really loud. It sounded really loud.
The first half, you thought they might. Well, I mean, you've got to give. Hungary have done well to qualify, and they're missing their best player, the lad for Zlobos. I can't pronounce it. The chap who plays for RB Leipzig. And did Renato Sanchez start as well?
No, he was on the bench.
Yeah,
he was on the bench. Yeah, so he didn't start.
And tell me about that third Ronaldo goal. The third Portugal's final goal.
I mean, it was just like beautiful. It was such a lovely move. And just the way he took it around the keeper at the end and slotted it in, it was fantastic. And the penalty as well. For me, like, that is where Ronaldo is so impressive, because you just know he's going to deliver in a situation like that in a big match and not miss. It's unbelievable, his consistency and his efficiency. And maybe playing in front of a big crowd has like brought the best out of him in a situation like that. Maybe it needed that kind of atmosphere. Like,
with Fernandes, I mean, one of the nicknames the English press have given him is Penandes, because of the number. I think United get a ridiculous amount of penalties, and I think I think Fernandes has scored sort of 21 out of 20 out of 21 or 21 out of 22 or something like that.
He's got like a PCA kind of conversion.
He can forget about it when he's playing for Portugal, presumably.
Yeah. Ronaldo's going to be the one on penalties for sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you. I mean, we it's a shame Frankie's not here, but obviously when we were talking with Frankie on the first show, we were very much singing Portugal's praises.
Yes.
And obviously this is probably a nice game for them to start with. Let the other two battle it out in the group. They win the first game, got 3 points, and
pressure's on the Germans now, isn't it?
The pressure is massively on the Germans. I mean, they're in big trouble if.
Wow.
I mean, they can qualify as the third team, but
who do they have next? Sorry, I can't remember the order of games in the group.
Let's have a look.
Who's up next?
Let's look right now.
You know, I mean, did you watch the Germany-France game?
I didn't know. I didn't see it. I
did, and France just sort of, you know, having got the lead, they were really able to sit on it, and there's one instant in the second half which is worth looking up and will probably be clipped on YouTube. It's you know, everyone knows Mats Hummels is not the quickest guy in the world, but a ball goes over the top, and honestly, he had about maybe a 10 meter head start on Mbappe. Mbappe just zooms past him. It is absolutely unbelievable. But Hummels does recover and gets in a pretty death-defying tackle just before he's about to get away from it. But it's I mean, the menace from that man on the counter is truly awesome. I mean, France, I still feel add up to a little bit less than some of their parts. Because I think the parts are so very, very impressive. But just so much quality there, absolutely every position. I mean, Germany were made to look pretty toothless.
Yeah, well, they've got to play Portugal next. So the next match in that group is Portugal Germany on Saturday at 5
o'clock. That could be curtains for them.
It could be curtains.
I really wouldn't fancy them, but you know, it'll be a good. Again, it's this first game thing. Are Germany really that bad, or did France just stifle them?
Yeah.
Because that may well have been the case. But I mean, the options they have. I mean, I thought the lad Rudiger had a very good. I thought he was excellent for most of the game. But the rest of in attack, they truly toothless. They could really do with they brought on the lad who's at Monaco, Bollard, who I think has been kicking around in the Bundesliga for years, and I mean he looked absolutely atrocious when they could really do with having Miroslav Klose to bring on the bench, bring off the bench, or someone Klinsmann, someone a bit sharper. They're really lacking a bit of cutting it. And Timo Werner, I mean, obviously he's a bit of a road runner this season, not the player at all that I expected turning up at Chelsea. I thought he was this sort of clinical, dead-eyed striker, but he's a road runner.
Yeah,
it's most peculiar to see the Germans like this. It's like they reminded me of England under Steve McLaren. Lots of pace and lots of physicality, out wide, but just lacking that sort of grit and know-how.
Yeah, they look like they've come to an end of their cycle. Well, we know they have.
I mean, yeah. Well, they've got this big problem in the sort of the under 24s, which is how they've been able to persuade Musiala to play for Germany and not for England, because he's the only guy under 24 in that German squad, because they've got a bit of a gap in that cohort. England had a similar problem a few cycles back, where we didn't have any players over. Well, we've got that problem at the moment. We don't really have that many good players over 30. But there we go.
I mean, I guess it's a testament to our young players that a club the size of Borussia Dortmund have had to poach our best young players, under the nose of clubs like Manchester City and Birmingham. I mean, it's incredible, really, isn't it, to think
retire that shirt.
Well, the shirt retiring is unbelievable. Isn't it?
We won't mention that again.
No.
Right. So Portugal look good, but do you think are they just flat track bullies, Mike?
I mean, I don't know how weak Hungary are. That's the problem. I think we will. I don't necessarily know how much Germany are going to test them. I think we'll find out. My view in international tournaments is that for most groups, it's just about qualifying to the second round, and then when it's the second round, that's when you see the team sort of kick on, and you can kind of really make a decision on how they're going to progress. The ones that get through the second round, and then pretty much like it's a free for, unless someone's drawn a really easy route, you can't really judge it. But I mean, Portugal are looking extremely efficient and resilient, and I think they just got a very solid spine to their team, experienced. I mean, I can't remember a team this good since maybe 2000 when they got to the semis and they had that incredible
good. The golden, is that the Portuguese golden?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when you had Rui Costa,
Fabregas.
Nuno Gomes, that was an incredible team.
But here you've got the sort of, you've got the defenders. I mean, it's just the fact that the first 11 they can put out in every position is superb.
Yeah, I think defensively, even though I love their goalkeeper, as I was raving about last time, and obviously Dias has had a great season at Man City, and I loved him when he was at Benfica. I thought he was a brilliant defender. Obviously, Pepe is liable to have crazy moments, and he's getting on a bit now.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he gets injured. I'll put it this way: if Dias gets injured, I think they could have a real problem.
Well, this is the consolation for Liverpool fans this season, which I've said to a number of them is, well, losing VVD for the season is very similar to Man City losing Ruben Dias. I think it would have a similar impact, and then obviously, Man City, you've got ridiculous reserves. Sort of, walk into the space.
And what's amazing is I think this Portugal team could survive a Ronaldo injury more than a Dias injury.
Yeah, because they've got more attackers, haven't they?
I mean, obviously, he's their talisman. They're not going to get another situation in the final probably if they were to lose him where someone unlikely, Edinho, steps up. But I mean, you never know, right? I mean, I do think on what we've seen so far, I would nudge Portugal and France ahead of everyone else, as we did already. But I think until the second round, you can't. Because look, now we'll talk about it now. England had a great match against Croatia. Seeing how poor Scotland were against the Czech Republic, I would assume that we will batter them. But it's Scotland. It's
let's
unnecessary pressure you want in a group stage match, right? I mean, Scotland.
Let's talk about England and Scotland. Well, let's talk about Scotland, Czech Republic first of all.
All right.
I mean, I think the Czech Republic are not mugs. I think that they have got some very, very good players. And they're at a different point in their cycle from Croatia. I think that maybe the threat from the Czech Republic is been slightly underrated. They've also got a bit of pedigree, particularly at the Euros. You look at their team. Soufal, Souček, Patrick Schick. They've got some fairly decent. They've got the lad Hlobek, is it the 18-year-old lad of whom great things are spoken on the bench. So they're not mugs. But I mean, I think this is a pretty decent Scotland team in a lot of ways. It's got some really obvious weaknesses though, real sort of gaping holes. I mean, I think in central defence.
Yeah.
I mean, first name on the team sheet, Grant Hanley. We know him well. He's a sturdy, workabout player, but he really is the poor man's Harry Maguire. He's not, not gonna.
I mean, we shouldn't have too many problems against him. God bless.
No, and I think also up front they've got a lot of weaknesses as well. I mean, the lad Dykes, I don't think is really up for it. I mean, up to it. They've got Che Adams, who they've had to switch allegiance, who seems to be doing he's from another product of that famous Birmingham City conveyor belt now at Southampton. I think he's a decent enough striker, but they do lack.
So who do you think the team will be against Scotland? Do you think he's going to pick the same team against Croatia? Is he going to make one or two adjustments, and if so, where?
Well, I would envisage that he'll start with the same team that started. I don't think Gareth is I don't think he tailors his tactics particularly. He'll be thinking, let's keep it cagey, let's keep it tight. Because to be honest, a draw gets us through to the next round. Yeah. That's the reality of this game. As long as we don't lose, we're probably through. Yeah. Scotland need to come out and win. If I were him as well, I'd be. If I were Scotland manager, you've got the issue that if you lose or if you look like you're going to draw, it's potentially curtains, or you're left needing a win against Croatia.
No, I agree. Same team. I think now is not the time to kind of like experiment. I think if we win and then we've got 6 points, then for the last group match maybe we can try and be a little bit more.
If we win, we're through. So it's it's hard to conceive how we wouldn't go through it in one of the front three places. And given that we're where we potentially who we end up playing, it might not make. So you probably play your second 11 against the Czech Republic, which is probably a nice thing to do. One of our many strange goalkeepers. So I'd probably stay for this. I'd stay with the same 11. But the interesting thing will be how Scotland approach the game. Do they go for it? Because I think their best tactic is still to keep it tight and try and nick something from a set piece. I mean, they've got where they're particularly gifted. Obviously, they've got these two, well, I'd say 1.5 world-class left backs, because I think Robertson would walk into most teams in the world. I think he's a fantastic player. I think Tierney is a good player, but he's so injury prone that you can't. The reason he's at Arsenal and not Real Madrid is because he's so injury prone.
I mean, you're right. You're right about Scotland. I think they probably will keep it tight, and it'll be interesting to see how good we are defensively, because their biggest threat will be from set pieces. So
and McGinn doing something clever. He's a canny. He's one of those game intelligence players. Although he was very, very disappointing against the Czech Republic. I was, I rate their central midfield. I think is where they've got, McTominay, who I know is sort of a bit of a boo boy for some Man United fans, but I think you don't play centre midfield for that club if you're useless. I think he's a pretty good player, and they've got some other players in there who can do some damage, but.
All right, Rich. So, what are our predictions then? What would your prediction be for England Scotland on Friday at 8 o'clock BST?
I think that I think again. Well, I'll say it'll be 0-0 at half time, and England will win 1-0. I don't think Gareth's not the. Yeah, I mean, you would kind of like to see him let them off the leash a little bit at some point, and just sort of I think particularly against Scotland, he'll use the bench quite heavily, and he'll use his attacking options off the bench. And I think that's really dangerous for them, because that's not, if you're Grant Hanley, that's not what you want to see. You don't want to see Jadon Sancho coming on for Sterling, having sort of been pulled around by him for 60 minutes, 70 minutes. That's where I think England will, Scotland will be quite worried about the late phase of the game. And are Scotland a massive danger from set pieces? I'm not sure. Obviously, England are probably quite vulnerable from them without Maguire marshalling everything. But I mean, I wouldn't really fancy my chances against Tyrone Mings and John Stones if I'm one of those Scotland players. I mean, Dykes is a big guy, but I don't know. I do think England will probably control this game and win it. I would be very, very surprised.
You're saying 1-0? You're saying 0-0 at half time and then 1-0?
I think England will win 1-0, because this is a pretty unambitious England side. Look, they might, if Kane gets the goal, for hunger, if he gets the chances, he will put them away. That's the other thing. If he sort of explodes in this tournament, you can see him pulling away. But I think we'll be quite conservative again, because, as I say, we only need a draw. And I think Scotland will find it quite difficult to break down England, particularly if they play with the double pivot again.
Yeah. I've got a feeling that we're gonna come out like we did against Croatia, really strongly. And if we get an early goal, not too early, because we know what happens when we score too early, but I think if we get a goal around the time that Foden missed his chance against Croatia, I think we could destroy them. And I think you could see a really high quality goal potentially, especially if someone like Grealish comes on. I think that could be amazing. But
I mean, that's what I'm going
to say 3-0. I'm going to say 3-0.
And that's what we'd all love to see as England fans is Grealish waving his magic wand and doing his thing. That's what we really want to see, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or Foden, doing a. Recreating my happiest footballing memory of my life, probably Gazza's goal.
Well, I think I'm definitely. I don't know about you, but after the performance on Sunday, I'm feeling even more confident than I was.
Yeah, and I think that Czech result will really have knocked Scotland's confidence. I really because they had very high expectations, and what the Czech Republic aren't. They are quite. This is why David Moyes is signing all those players, because they are quite streetwise. They are quite tough. They're quite physical. They're big, strong side. But I think Scotland would have quite fancied the chances of an upset there, and they didn't really. They had a lot of chances, but they couldn't polish them off, and they got hit with those 2 superb goals. The first one was an excellent header, and the second one, the ridiculous one. What was David Marshall doing? But partly. I always do wonder when the goalkeepers get close. I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, but I always think, oh, come on, mate. You could stretch a little bit for that, but I appreciate it's quite difficult to judge the flight of the ball when someone's volleyed it from 60 yards out. But no. So I'd be pretty confident as an England fan.
Good. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's probably enough for us for this program. So we're going to be back on Friday, the 25th of June, where there aren't any fixtures. So the tournament takes a break on that Friday and the Thursday before, but the second round matches start the next day. So we'll have a lot to preview. Hopefully Carl will be with us again, and we will be the preview program for the Man Cave on the 25th. So thank you all, and look forward to an England victory in a couple of days.
Take care. Bye.